Story number 1, The Substitute's Nightmare. It was just another Monday at Westfield High. The autumn chill had set in, and most of us were more focused on the upcoming Halloween dance than our studies. When we shuffled into fourth period history, we were surprised to see a substitute instead of Mr. Grayson. "Good morning, class. I'm Miss Hanson," she said, her voice barely audible over the chatter. She seemed nervous from the start, fumbling with the attendance sheet and struggling to get the projector working. Halfway through her stumbling lecture on the Civil War, the principal's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention all staff and students, this is not a drill. We are initiating an immediate lockdown. Teachers, secure your classrooms." The change in Ms. Hanson was immediate and alarming. Her face went pale and her hands shook as she tried to turn off the lights. "What do I do?" she muttered, more to herself than to us. Jake, always the class clown, started to laugh. "Chill, it's probably just a drill." But Ms. Hanson's panic was contagious. As she struggled with the unfamiliar door lock, whispers spread through the room. What if it wasn't a drill? "Everyone, please," Ms. Hanson's voice cracked. "Move to the far corner, away from the windows and door." We huddled together in the darkness, the tension palpable. That's when we heard it. Heavy footsteps in the hall outside. Slow, deliberate steps that stopped right outside our door. The handle jiggled. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Ms. Hanson's phone buzzed, the screen illuminating her terrified face. She read the message and went even paler if that was possible. "There's an armed intruder in the building," she whispered. The footsteps moved on, but our ordeal was far from over. For what felt like hours, we sat in that dark corner, jumping at every sound. A few girls were crying softly. Jake wasn't laughing anymore. When the all-clear finally came, we emerged to find the school swarming with police. We later learned that the intruder had been a recently expelled student, armed with his father's gun, seeking revenge for perceived wrongs. Ms. Hanson never came back to substitute, and for weeks after, every unexpected noise in the hallway made us freeze. The fear lingered long after the danger had passed. Story number 2, Lunchroom Lockdown. The cafeteria was buzzing with its usual lunchtime chaos. It was Taco Tuesday, always a favorite, and the lunch line snaked halfway across the room. I had just sat down with my tray when the alarms blared. At first, we thought it was a drill. We'd had one just last month, and everyone groaned at the thought of another interrupted lunch. But then we saw the panic on the lunch ladies' faces. "Everyone move now!" Mrs. Patel, the head cafeteria worker, shouted. She and the other staff started herding us towards the kitchen and pantry areas. "What's going on?" someone asked. "Just move," was the only response. We found ourselves crammed into the industrial kitchen, wedged between massive refrigerators and shelves stacked with canned goods. The kitchen staff locked the doors and turned off the lights. In the dim emergency lighting, I could see the fear on everyone's faces. That's when we heard the shouting outside. "I saw him," whispered Carlos, who had been sitting near the window. "There was a man with a knife in the parking lot." A ripple of fear went through the group. Phones started buzzing as news spread through text messages. Apparently, the man had been seen trying to enter the school through several doors before someone had let him into the main office. Minutes felt like hours as we waited in silence, jumping at every sound. The industrial freezers hummed ominously. Someone started sobbing quietly, and others shushed them. Suddenly, there was a loud bang from the cafeteria. Several people screamed. Mrs. Patel motioned frantically for silence. More banging followed, then the sound of things being overturned. Whoever was out there was trashing the cafeteria. Just when we thought we couldn't take the tension anymore, we heard new voices, authoritative, calm. The police had arrived. There was a scuffle, some shouting, then silence. When the all-clear finally came, we emerged to find the cafeteria in complete disarray. Trays overturned, food scattered everywhere. The police had subdued a distraught parent involved in a custody dispute. He had come to the school to take his child, armed with a knife and wild with desperation. That day, none of us finished our lunches. And for weeks after, the cafeteria felt less like a place for social gathering and more like a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. Story number 3, After School Ambush. I stayed late for yearbook club that Thursday. It was already dark outside, the days getting shorter as winter approached. We were wrapping up around 5 p.m. discussing layout ideas for the senior section. That's when we heard it. A series of loud pops echoing through the empty halls. At first, I thought it might be the janitors moving furniture, but then I saw Mr. Kemp's face. Our advisor moved faster than I'd ever seen him move. He bolted to the door, locking it and killing the lights in one fluid motion. "Everyone, under the desks, now!" he whispered urgently. We didn't need to be told twice. Huddled in the darkness, we watched shadows move past the door's window. Someone was out there, methodically checking each room. Mr. Kemp's voice was barely audible. Stay quiet. Use your phones to call 911, but keep them on silent. I fumbled with my phone, hands shaking so bad I could barely dial. Next to me, Sarah started to cry. We all feared her sobs would give us away. The shadow paused at our door. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure it would hear me. The door handle jiggled. We all held our breath. After what felt like an eternity, the shadow moved on. But our ordeal wasn't over. For the next hour, we stayed frozen in place, barely daring to breathe. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. We heard shouts, then more pops, louder this time. When the police finally found us, we were a mess of tears and frayed nerves. They escorted us out past a scene of chaos. Overturned trash cans, papers scattered everywhere, and bright orange splatters on the walls and floors. We later found out it was a former janitor fired for theft, who had returned with a paintball gun for revenge. He had been aiming to vandalize the school, not hurt anyone, but in those terrifying moments, we had no way of knowing that. Though no one was physically hurt, the emotional scars ran deep. I never stayed late at school again, and to this day, the sound of a paintball gun makes me break out in a cold sweat.